Hey guys, what's up? This is Brett. Welcome to another special edition of Friday on the Turntable. This is the 9th video in my album ranking series. So for those of you guys been with me a long time, you may recall that I did a part 1 of album ranking for David Bowie where I featured and ranked all of his albums from 1969 all the way to 1980. So for those of you guys that have been emailing me since then asking where part 2 is, this is for you guys. So it's kind of cool that I waited because now we have the new album the next day, which came out in the spring of 2013. So if I would have done it any sooner, we wouldn't have had that one in here. So a couple rules before I start. Number one, while Bowie in this time period of 83 to 2013, he had several different soundtracks, one of them being Christiane F., which just basically collected recordings from Bowie's career. So that one I'm not counting. I'm also, unfortunately, I know some of you may be disappointed, I'm not including the Labyrinth soundtrack because of a couple reasons. It only featured, I think, half Bowie compositions, and then the rest of the songs were written by, I think it was Trevor Jones, without Bowie's involvement. So it's not, I don't really see it the same way. But I am including 1993's The Buddha of Suburbia, which is a lesser-known Bowie album because it's exclusively an album of his. So 13 albums in total. Number 2, I'm gonna have a link below that's gonna go to my website where I have a playlist for as usual, my 3 favorite songs from each album, and links to purchase them, and some extra links like some of the books that I'm gonna discuss at the end of the video. And lastly, guys, this is for fun, so please no negativity. If you don't agree with the picks, there's no need for negativity. This is all for fun, guys. It's music. We love talking about it, love listening to it. So if my opinion's different than yours, how does that make either one of us correct or incorrect? So just keep that in mind, guys, when you're leaving comments. All right, so let's start here with my 13 choice. This is my least favorite David Bowie album from 1983 to 2013. So while this is my least favorite one, I think it was a very important record for him to make. He kind of went anonymous, took on a band name, and kind of drastically made a departure from what came before in the 80s. So this is the first Tin Machine album from 1989, where he worked with Reeves Gabrels on guitar and Hunt and Tony Salas, the two brothers that played drums and bass that he had worked with before on Iggy Pop's Lust for Life album all the way back from 1977. So there was only 2 Tin Machine albums. Shockingly, this actually yielded 4 singles. And why it's my least favorite of this time period, it's just I've had this album for years and years, and I never gravitated towards it. Melodically speaking, there's nothing that ever really hooked me, bar a couple little moments. So I'm not going to spend hardly any more time talking about it. I'm just going to get right to my 3 favorite songs: Baby Can Dance, Prisoner of Love, and Bus Stop. All right, moving on to number 12. Preceding Tin Machine was Never Let Me Down from 1987. Now, I had a hard time choosing between these 2 albums as to which one I was going to go number 13 and number 12. But I tried to, over the last couple weeks, I've been listening to all of these albums multiple times with kind of new eyes, new ears, not going in with any certain notions on any of these, and just trying to approach it from this point in time here, February of 2014, and just kind of listen and see what happens and see where I put things. And Never Let Me Down started off feeling that it was going to be last, but it edged out this album for one main reason. I think the songs in Never Let Me Down get really clouded by the kind of the studio sheen slickness of the production, but I think at the core there's some really good tracks on here, whereas on the first Tin Machine album I don't really find the songs to be that great. So it has some really bad moments. One of those comes to mind is the song Shining Star and the guest appearance of actor Mickey Rourke doing a rap on the song Shining Star. So, and when you compare it to what else came out around that time, like 1987, U2's The Joshua Tree comes immediately to mind, and the organic sound of that album versus the kind of overproduced sound of Never Let Me Down. It's a strange album. 3 favorite tracks: Time Will Crawl, Beat of Your Drum, and Zeros. I think all three of those songs are really really solid. All right, in at number 11. So in 1983, Bowie worked with producer Nile Rodgers, the guitar player from the band Chic. Most recently, you guys familiar with the band Daft Punk? He co-wrote that one or performed with them on the Grammys. I just saw it recently. But he produced Bowie's Let's Dance album. Well, 10 years later, they got back together to work on a new album, and that is Black Tie, White Noise. It kind of reunited also David Bowie with his guitar player from the Ziggy Stardust days, Mick Ronson, who was at the same time was producing, or just before, around the same time, was producing Morrissey's Your Arsenal album. And Bowie ended up doing a cover of one of those Morrissey songs, I Know It's Gonna Happen Someday, and as a little play back and forth with Morrissey, who Bowie found a similarity between one of the vocal parts in that song, so Bowie has a little poke back and recorded a cover version of that song, which was kind of funny. This album has some really good moments, and then it also has some really not good moments. The Black Tie, White Noise, the title track, is just, it's not good. It features jazz trumpeter Lester Bowie also on a lot of the tracks, but it has some elements of almost like a smooth jazz, which is kind of a turnoff for me, and some kind of adult contemporary moments, which is also kind of a turnoff in the context of David Bowie's music. Three favorite tracks: the Wedding Song, I think, is excellent. Jump They Say, which was a kind of an upbeat track written as a tribute to his half-brother Terry, who suffered from mental illness, who had died several years before this. And then his version of the Walker Brothers, Scott Walker, Night Flight. It's a great version of that song. So that's number 11, Black Tie, White Noise. All right, number 10, after the Let's Dance album, about a year and a half, he released Tonight to kind of capitalize on the success of Let's Dance. This was a much less successful moment in his catalog. The last three tracks on this one, Tumble and Twirl, I Keep Forgetting, and Dancing with the Big Boys, I find them to be just really weak songs. But he does kind of two of his own cover songs, so to speak. The song Tonight, which he had co-written with Iggy Pop, and it appeared on Lust for Life back in '77, and Neighborhood Threat, both of those. And then he co-wrote a couple new songs for this album with Iggy Pop. And then it has Tina Turner on backing vocals on the song Tonight. Three favorite songs: Loving the Alien, which is a brilliant Bowie track. A great version, some may disagree, of the Beach Boys' God Only Knows, which was on Pet Sounds. And Bowie's version, singing this nice, deep, rich baritone, and then towards the end he gets really emotional and kind of really belts out and kind of this scream, God only knows. Great moment, and Blue Jean. All right, in at number 9. This is the second Tin Machine album. Now, in between the first and the second one, Bowie kind of rediscovered his back catalog, so to speak. The Ryko disc label reissued all of his work from Space Oddity through Scary Monsters, and he went on a greatest hits tour in between the two Tin Machine albums. So the second one, to me, is a much stronger album. It's more melodically accessible. I think the songs are better. With that said, for some reason or other, Hunt Salas, the drummer, is the featured lead vocalist on two songs, Stateside and Sorry, and those should have been really left off of the album because they really have no place on this. And I know Bowie was trying to go with a more band democratic approach. So that's probably what happened, but perhaps he regrets that. And there's a cool cover of Roxy Music's If There Is Something, which appeared on the first Roxy Music album. I remember seeing Tin Machine on Saturday Night Live back when this album came out around 1991. They performed the opening track, Baby Universal. But three favorite songs on this one: Goodbye Mr. Ed, which is an outstanding song, Baby Universal, and Betty Wrong. So that's number 9. That's the second Tin Machine album. In at number 8, this may surprise some people because I know a lot of people really love this album. I bought it the day it came out, and in those 15 years, I just really had a hard time getting into it. I appreciate it more now than I did when it came now than when it came out. But that's Hours, and this is the UK version with the little, I don't know what you call that. It kind of moves as you rock it back and forth. But Hours, it reminds me in some ways it's a less successful, less good 90s version of like his Hunky Dory album. It's more stripped down, it's more acoustic, it's more mellow, down tempo, but some of the songs verge on just overproduction. Thursday's Child, the opening track, which I really like, but it's still, with the female backing vocals on that one, it just, the production on that one, I find it's a little too glossy. It was the last album he did with Reeves Gabrels, who, as we talked about earlier, appeared with him on in Tin Machine, and they had a good run of collaborative effort all the way from '89 through Hours, and this was the last one. But three favorite songs, and this one's Seven, which I think is a great song. The Pretty Things Are Going to Hell, more of an upbeat, raucous song, and Thursday's Child, as I talked about before, is despite its production, I think it's a really good track. All right, in at number 7, this is Bowie's best-selling album. Sold over 7 million copies worldwide. Features the blues guitar player Stevie Ray Vaughan before he kind of got in the public conscious. It didn't actually tour for the album because he went on to put out his own first studio album. But this is Let's Dance. Produced by Nile Rodgers, as I said earlier. Very dancey, very pop-oriented. Huge singles on this one. Which are my 3 favorite songs from this one. Let's Dance, China Girl, which was another song that he had actually co-written with Iggy Pop, and it appeared on The Idiot in 1977, and the song Modern Love. There's a couple really weak spots on this one. I think Shake It is kind of a weird one, and half of Ricochet bothers me, but Cat People's also great, and Without You, it's kind of a little ballad. It's, you know, I mean, this album often doesn't get, I think, as much credit as it deserves because it kind of went as it's kind of seen as a Bowie mainstream album. But man, when you listen to it, I was listening to it last night and I couldn't help but just sing along with those first 3 tracks because they're so huge. All right, moving on to number 6. 2003, before Bowie took a 10-year break, he put out Reality. I saw him on this tour. It was the last time I saw him because it was the last time that he toured. But Reality came out just a year after his previous album, Heathen, and it has a couple cover songs on it. It has a version of the Modern Lovers' Pablo Picasso, as well as George Harrison's Try Some, Buy Some. And I have the German kind of deluxe version here, which includes another song on it. It's a cover of the Kinks' Waterloo Sunset, as well as it has a DVD that has a live performance of the entire album. But Reality, I didn't like it as much as the album that came before it, but still I think it's a strong album. And my 3 favorite tracks in this one: Days, which is one of Bowie's best songs from this whole time period, Fall Dog Bombs the Moon, and The Loneliest Guy. All right, in at number 5. So as I mentioned in the kind of the preface to this video, this album, a lot of people don't even know of its existence because it didn't really have a U.S. release when it first came out. So 1993, Bowie released Black Tie, White Noise, but he also released the soundtrack to the Buddha of Suburbia. Now, Buddha of Suburbia was a BBC 4-part TV series that was based on the book of the same name. Bowie went in the studio, recorded in excess of, I think, 40 pieces of music. And the reason why I'm including this one is because even the instrumentals were all co-written or written by Bowie, so it is a Bowie album in the truest form. And like I said, a lot of people don't know, it often gets forgotten, but it has some spectacular moments. And for me, this album is the gateway to what was from kind of the break from everything before it, from '83 to this album 10 years later, and then it really showed what was coming from Bowie, especially in the immediate future. The title track, The Buddha of Suburbia, actually, it's funny because the lyrics to the song actually has some little snippets of the song Aladdin sang from 20 years before. And then it also has this little guitar chord walk up, dun, 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 that was in the song Space Oddity. So 3 favorite songs on this one. title track, The Mysteries, which is just, I think, a really great instrumental song that really brings back memories of the second side of the Low album, all those instrumental pieces as well, even more so and more in common with the instrumentals from the Heroes album. And then the song Dead Against It is another good one. So that is the Buddha of Suburbia, and that is in at number 5. All right, number 4. So last year, just out of nowhere, a surprise single comes out, an announcement for a new album, and then shortly after that, we have a brand new Bowie album. How unexpected was that? Waited a long time, you know, the years gone by and nothing from Bowie, and then bam, just in silence. It's really rare in this day and age with the immediacy of journalists, the internet, news. It just goes, any little mention of anything, it goes viral immediately. So it's amazing that in this day and age, this album is kept such a secret. So this is 2013's The Next Day. What's really cool about this album is it already has 5 singles from it. So it's just a good glimpse at just Bowie. He still has it. It's a great album. And my 3 favorite tracks, Where Are We Now, which was that surprise single that came out in the spring last year. Heat, which is very reminiscent for me of some of Scott Walker's later work. Just very stark and ominous. Just a great track. And The Stars Are Out Tonight. The Next Day, this is number 4. All right, top 3. All right. In 1997, I remember I had a friend that worked at a radio station, and he said, hey, an early copy of the new Bowie album came out. Do you want to hear it? So we got together and I listened to it. I was immediately disappointed at the time because I was expecting something else to come out, but it was Earthling. And over the years, I've grown to really, really love this album. It is very influenced from its time. Dance music, techno, industrial, drum and bass, jungle, all those elements are within this album. But it has just some great songs as well. And I love putting it on in the car because it's such a good album. And at times, and I've read this before, I think from Bowie, is it harkens back a little bit to the Scary Monsters album, but with a much more dance feel to it. 3 favorite songs on this one are Dead Man Walking, Battle for Britain, and I'm Afraid of Americans, which was actually a outtake leftover track from the previous album, Outside, and so it was finished and included on Earthling. So, yeah, excellent album. And the song Telling Lies, I remember back then, I think it was in '96, was the first song that was available from like a big artist like someone on Bowie's level, where it was available via the internet as a download, and I think it was in 3 parts. But that was really cool. So Bowie's always kind of been pretty cutting edge with how he's approached things. All right, in at number 2, this is Heathen. I got to see Bowie on tour for this album as well. I saw him in Irving, which is in Orange County, California. And he performed with Moby, and they did a lot of the songs from this one, as well as I think just about the whole entirety of the Low album, which was a great show. And a little interesting information about Heathen is there was in between hours in this album, he actually went in the studio and recorded a whole other album, which is not included in this ranking, but it's an album that some of you guys may have actually heard, but that is called Toy. So in 2000, he went in and recorded some of his songs that were from the 1960s that preceded the Space Oddity album, as well as he wrote a couple new songs. Well, that album never got released by Virgin. They shelved it. And in the meantime, he had to keep moving, so he went in and recorded Heathen. Some of the tracks that were going to be on Toy, Uncle Floyd, which turned into Slip Away, and a song called Afraid, and then some of the other songs ended up being as B-sides to the singles. But if you're interested in reading more about Toy, the publishers, Backbeat Books, via Hal Leonard, sent me this book to review a few years back. And it goes over music, greatest music never sold, so it has all the lost albums from various bands like Beastie Boys, Chicago, Beck, and then Bowie's Toy has a whole chapter in there, so you can read about that. Kind of interesting to find out about all these different albums that were recorded and then just never made it out. So my three favorite tracks on this one are Slip Away, Slow Burn, and Heathen, the Rays. And this is the deluxe CD, and it has a bonus disc, which has another one of the songs that was going to make it on Toy, and that is Conversation Piece, which is one of my absolute favorite Bowie songs of any era of all time. And I think it was the B-side to the Prettiest Star single back in, I think back in the early 70s. But the new version of it is stellar. I think Bowie changes the key, sings it in a lower voice, and outstanding. All right, here we are at number 1. Now, on the tour for this album, as you can see from my shirt, this is when I first saw David Bowie live. He performed in 1995. I think it was October 18th with 9 Inch Nails. This album, Outside, I bought it the day it came out. I remember going to the record store with my dad, and grabbed. He was probably buying Frank Sinatra CD, and I bought Outside. What a welcomed album this was at the time, and there was no doubt what number 1 was going to be in this video, because Outside is obviously my favorite one from this time period. It's a concept album. It has all these musical segues of various characters that appear on this album. It's dark. It has a lot. It kind of has the kind of bleak worldview that he put out there on his Diamond Dogs album, which is my favorite all-time Bowie album from '74, and it kind of has a lot in common with that record. It's dark. It has so many cool elements. It reunited him with Brian Eno. He had worked on in the late 70s. And most of the album was actually improvised in the studio. They didn't go in with any songs. And Brian Eno's famous studio production techniques, oblique strategies, where he has cards that have various characters and situations on it. And he hands those to the musicians before they start on a piece. To kind of take them out of their comfort zone. So one minute you can be working on a piece of music and it completely changes your perception on how you're going to approach your instrument. And that's what happened on Outside. And this was initially going to be a 3-part series. I think number 2, as you can see, it's number 1 Outside, but I think number 2 was going to be called Contamination. Well, he abandoned that, although there was hours and hours of raw material. They never pieced any of it together to finish off the series, which was so disappointing. And that was one of the disappointments of when Earthling came out, because we expected the second part to come out. Yeah, it's a great album, and this is available on vinyl. I don't know if it's ever been available. It's in entirety, but I remember seeing the excerpts, which kind of chop the album up, because it is 19 songs, and it takes the CD as a 1 CD disc, takes it all the way to the limit of 74 minutes. But worth every second of it, and to have it chopped up on vinyl would really defeat my whole perception of this album. So 3 favorite songs in this one: Strangers When We Meet, which actually this was the only song that appeared anywhere else, and an earlier version was on the Buddha of Suburbia soundtrack. Number 2, The Heart's Filthy Lesson, which I think was the first single to come out for this one. It's a very dark, almost gothic video for that one. And number 3, I'm Deranged. Great song in the opening segment of the David Lynch film Lost Highway, and you see the road stripes. Dun, dun. Great song. Okay. So that is it on the album ranking. That's number 1 there. One more thing I want to show you guys. If you want to read something further on this time period of Bowie's career, there's a book written by Dave Thompson that I reviewed on my site a few years back, and it is called Hello Space Boy, The Rebirth of David Bowie. And it goes through this whole time period from Let's Dance all the way through, maybe it starts at the Never Let Me Down, I don't recall, but it's the 80s all the way through the Reality album, so you can really focus, while a lot of the biographies focus a lot more on his 70s output. It's really interesting to read about what was going on behind the scenes and in the album processes of all these albums that I talked about today. So, guys, I look forward to reading your comments. If you'd like to leave your own ranked list of this time period, please do. Rank it number 13th to number 1. And I really look forward to that, to hearing back from you guys. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.